Last summer, on August 13, 2018, my daughter Shanann Watts and her children were murdered. They were killed by Shannon's husband and the children's father, Chris Watts. I can't possibly describe how painful the last 11 months have been for myself, my wife, and my son, Frankie Jr., and for everyone else who cared so much about Shanann and her children. Just dealing with this type of tragedy is more than a family should bear. But I am making a statement today because for the past 11 months, piled on top of pain and the grieving of this devastating loss, our family has been subject to horribly, cruelly abused, outright bullying, and on a daily basis. I don't want to draw more attention to the viral material that has been posted online, and so I don't want to go into specifics, but I will say that our family, including Shanann and her children and our grandchildren, have been ridiculed, demeaned, slandered, mocked in the most vicious ways you can imagine. We have been subject to false accusations, fake Facebook accounts, hate speeches, and constant stream of ugly, evil insults and attacks. Every time we turn around, there is someone trying to capitalize on our tragedy. By spreading false rumors and outright lies about Shanann and our grandchildren. We have been subject to threats on our lives, all because we are victims in painful tragedy. This is so wrong. It is cruel, it is heartless, it is flat wrong. It breaks my heart to know that we are not the first family to have to live through this kind of tragedy, and we won't be the last. Families like ours should have the right to be safe and the right of a basic level of privacy, the right to mourn in peace. And it boils my blood that my family and other families are dealing with worse imaginable tragedy, have to deal with this kind of cruelty and bullying. It needs to stop. To Congress, or to any position in power, we are calling on you to do something to pass laws that will protect victims of unspeakable crimes from this kind of abuse. Our online social media sites like Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, we have contacted you many times, reported this abuse, but no avail. We are calling on you again to do the right thing, to take some responsibility for your platforms and stop this despicable conduct. To the people who feel they are entitled to profit off our loss, we urge you, please stop. And for the people who are interested in this case, who feel compelled to comment and discuss, please stick to the truth. It is painful enough for us to just dealing with the reality. Reading the insane conspiracy theories, ugly false rumors, and lies only make it more painful. Finally, to the people who have stood with us, who have supported us and prayed for us and our family, For Shanann and her grandchildren, we can't thank you enough. God bless you all, and thank you for your time. Thank you.
Hey, Frank, quick question, and I asked this respectfully, but was there any fear about coming forward because you're now giving these people that are saying this stuff even more for their platforms, if you will?
No.
And did you come here, back to Colorado here today, I mean, for the sole purpose of doing this?
Yes, I did.
Why?
Why? Because I felt it needed to be done here at her house.
Because that's how bad it is.
Yes, it is.
I mean, are people, it sounds like a lot of this is happening in the online space. I know you don't want to go too much into it, but people hide behind those.
Welcome to Dark Matters, True Crime, the channel where every case drags you deeper into the unknown. Hit that subscribe button and join us as we explore the darkest corners of the human mind.
7 years have passed. Yet for Frank Rzucek, time hasn't softened anything. His voice still shakes, his hands still tremble, and his heart still breaks every time he says his daughter's name. In a rare and emotional moment, he finally spoke openly about the nightmare that forever altered his family. His daughter Shanann and his granddaughters Bella and Cece, taken by the man who was supposed to love and protect them. Frank didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The weight of his words carried enough force. He should never see the light of day, not ever. He paused after saying it, as if the air had been pulled out of the room. Frank explained how the silence from Chris over the years has only deepened the betrayal. Not just the horror of what he did, but the layers of manipulation, the lies, the performance, the coldness before anyone knew the truth. He looked me in the eye, Frank whispered. He sat at my table. He held my granddaughters. And the whole time, he was capable of this. What hurt most wasn't only the crime, it was the deception, the fake worry, the crocodile tears, the staged interviews. Frank said the world only saw a fraction of the darkness he sensed, but never could have imagined. People ask if I believe he's changed, Frank added. Changed? You can't change from something like this. You can't undo it. You can't redeem it. For Frank, justice isn't about revenge. It's about ensuring no other family ever experiences what his did. And that, he says, means one thing. Chris Watts must spend the rest of his life exactly where he is. Before we continue, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Dark Matters True Crime for more cases, more insight, and more truth behind the stories the world should never forget. Frank Rzucek remembers the final afternoon he saw Shanann, and as if it were etched into the back of his eyelids. Something he relives every night whether he wants to or not. She was tired, a little stressed, but smiling the way she always did, carrying the weight of her family on her shoulders and still making it look effortless. I hugged her, and she smelled like her perfume, Frank said softly. I didn't know it would be the last time. There's a certain kind of pain only a parent who has outlived their child understands. Frank carries that pain like a permanent shadow. When he talks about Shanann now, his voice cracks, but it's the moments of silence in between that reveal the real devastation. The ones where he is clearly holding back memories too raw to release. He recalls how Shanann talked about the future. Plans for the girls, the baby boy she hoped would complete their family, and the dreams she thought she and Chris were building together. She believed in him, Frank said. She trusted him. She gave him everything she had. That trust, he explains, is what makes the betrayal feel even more monstrous. People don't understand, Frank continued. Shanann wasn't just my daughter. She was my friend. She called me when she needed advice. She called me when she got good news. I was the first person she told when she found out she was pregnant with Nico. He paused, wiping his eyes. And she had no idea the man she slept beside every night was planning to take her away from all of us. Frank says the grief doesn't get smaller. It just finds new places to live inside you. Before we go on, please like this video and subscribe to Dark Matters True Crime for more deep dives into cases that must never be forgotten. Frank Rzucek had stayed quiet for years, partly out of trauma, partly out of the exhausting pressure to remain composed in the public eye. But behind closed doors, behind the soft-spoken interviews and trembling statements, lived a storm people never saw. That storm had finally reached its breaking point. He says the hardest part isn't the nightmares or the silence in the house where Shanann's laughter used to echo. It isn't even the haunting realization that he will never again hear Bella sing or Cece call out, Papa. The hardest part is knowing that the man who stole them still gets to breathe. Chris should never see the light of day, Frank said, his voice steady but trembling beneath the surface. Never. Not after what he did. Not after the lies. Not after the way he tried to wipe them out like they didn't matter.
I believe in afterlife awareness, and I do believe that Shanann and Nico and Bella and Cece have access. And
What did they say to me when they came to see me?
have they?
Yes.
And what did Cece say?
The first night when they found Shannon's body, I'm going to be honest with you, Dr. Phil. I was laying in the bed weeping so hard, talking to God, and I said, you know, I could just end my life now and go find my daughter. I had fallen asleep. The next morning, I get a phone call, and they found Shannon's body. I said, do you want me to identify her on the phone? And he said, yeah, you could do that. And I said, is she beautiful? He said, yes. I said, does she have black hair? And he said, yes. And I said, then you have my daughter. That night, I was laying in bed and I just felt a presence, and I heard my daughter. I felt her, and I heard her say, I love you, Mommy, and I'm sorry. She told me she was at peace. I finally fell asleep with my daughter at my presence, and she slept with me. I just felt her. The following day, I get a phone call, and they said, Sandy, we found your granddaughter, but we're not sure which one. And I said, Bella's a little taller. She's pretty slimmer. She don't got a little belly. And if you pull her hair up a little bit, because I do their hair, and it would be so long, you know, and then I realized all the oil, they would never know. So they said, who's the one that wears a pull-up? And I said, that would be Cece. They said, well, then we have Cece. And I said, well, keep going. I said, find my Bella. And 2 hours later, they did.
It was hard for them to even tell us. You know, you could hear it in their voices. I couldn't imagine trying to be in their shoes, trying to tell the parents what they just found. Yeah.
And it was 2 hours later that they said they had found Bella.
Yeah, she was at the bottom of the drum, and their skin was falling off as they were trying to get them out. Everybody needed so much therapy after that. Our hearts just go out to all of them that work so damn hard on this case.
And you felt Cece and Bella's presence.
I felt Cece's presence. She was first. And she goes, hiya, Nana. And I could see her, but in my mind, you know, but I could hear her. And she said, you've been always so good to us, Nana. And we love you with our soul. And I always took their face and kissed them all over. And she grabbed my face and just kissed me all over. And Shannon said, it's okay now. And we gave kisses, and she turns her to her left. And then Bella came in, and Bella went like kind of like, hi, Nana, you know, just like the way she, I don't know, just the way she did it, yeah. And she said, guess what, Nana? And I said, what, Bella? And she said, I can go to Walt Disney World anytime I want. And I said, that's right, Bella. That's right. She thanked us for loving her so much.
And that's how you remember those two?
Yes, after I saw Bella and Cece, and then Shannon was standing there. I could see her body, but like kind of like see-through, and then just her upper part turned, and then I couldn't see who was handing the baby to her, and she handed me my grandson, and looks just like Frankie. It's crazy, but looks just like Frankie. So
He remembers the moment detectives told him everything. How Shanann died, how the girls were discarded, how Chris calmly led investigators to the sites as if he were pointing out landmarks. Frank's hands shook uncontrollably. He felt something inside him rupture, a wound that would never fully close. The part that broke him the most wasn't the crime itself, but the coldness, the calculated stillness. The way Chris spoke about his own children as if they were a problem he needed to fix. Frank said, I kept asking myself, how long was he planning this? Did he smile at them while already knowing what he was going to do? That question has kept him awake for 7 years. He has accepted that justice cannot bring them back. But justice, in his eyes, must at least ensure one thing, that Chris Watts never again stands under the sun as a free man. Before we move to the next chapter, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Dark Matters True Crime. It helps us keep these stories alive, and it ensures voices like Frank's are never forgotten. When Frank Rzucek speaks about the investigation, he often describes the early hours as a fog, a place where hope and dread twisted together. But there was one thing that pierced through that haze. Chris Watts' silence. Not the silence of grief. Not the silence of a man worried about his missing family, but the silence of someone hiding something so dark it clung to the air like smoke. Detectives later said that Chris's calmness was unsettling from the moment he opened the door. His voice steady, his clothes clean, his story rehearsed. Even before his lies unraveled, Frank says he knew that something was terribly wrong. Chris wasn't panicked, Frank recalled. He was inconvenienced. As the hours passed, Chris clung to small details, repeating them like a script he had memorized. But he avoided the big questions, where Shanann could be, what happened after she got home, why the girls' beds were stripped. His silence wasn't confusion. It was self-preservation. Frank said, every time they asked him what happened, he dodged. He tried to paint Shanann as unstable. He tried to shift the blame onto the woman he murdered. That was the breaking point for Frank. That moment, when he realized Chris wasn't just lying. He was rewriting the final chapter of their lives, trying to bury Shanann's truth under a pile of fabricated excuses. For Frank, that was unforgivable, because the silence that Chris thought would protect him became the silence that exposed him, the space where guilt screamed louder than any words could. And for Frank Rzucek, it was the moment he made a vow he still carries today. Chris Watts will never walk away from what he did. Not in this lifetime. Before we move on, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Dark Matters True Crime to support more deep, investigative storytelling. For days, the Rzucek family lived in a nightmare suspended between hope and horror. Frank tried to hold himself together, clinging to the idea that somehow, his daughter and grandbabies were still out there, waiting, alive, needing to be found. But deep down, he already felt the truth taking shape. When investigators revealed Chris had failed his polygraph test, Frank said the room shifted. The air grew heavy, and for the first time, he saw the mask Chris had worn for years begin to crack. Frank watched as Chris sank into his seat, his shoulders trembling, not with grief, but with fear. Fear of being caught, fear of losing control, fear that his lies were no longer enough to shield him. And then Chris said it, a sentence that Frank still hears like a wound reopening. "I'll tell you what happened, but you need to let me speak to my father." In that moment, Frank's heart shattered. He remembers thinking, why does he need his father? Why didn't he think of my daughter? My grandkids? Why didn't he call me when they disappeared? Chris didn't care about the truth. He cared about performing it, controlling it, choosing which version would save him. And when the truth finally spilled out, twisted and mutilated to protect himself, Frank felt something inside him harden. The grief stopped being soft. It became sharp, cutting, purposeful, because not only had Chris taken Shanann and Bella and Celeste, he tried to steal their legacy. He tried to stain their final moments with lies. Frank remembers standing up, walking out, and whispering to himself, "He will not get away with this, not in life and not after." And from that day forward, Frank's grief became his mission. In the weeks that followed Chris's confession, Frank Rzucek lived inside a storm: grief, rage, disbelief, and a question that never stopped haunting him. How long had Chris been preparing to kill my daughter? At first, he tried to believe it was spontaneous. A moment of rage, a snap, something horrible but not something calculated. But as investigators laid out the timeline, detail by detail, Frank felt his stomach twist. The secret phone, the deleted messages, the dieting, the sudden obsession with appearance, the way Chris detached from Shanann and the moment she got pregnant. Nicole Kessinger's name appearing everywhere like a shadow he hadn't noticed before. Every piece pointed not to a moment of madness, but to a man who had already begun erasing his family long before August 13th. Frank listened quietly as agents explained how Chris researched things a husband, a father, should never even think about. Things that suggested a level of coldness so deep it felt inhuman. And then came the detail that nearly broke him. Chris had calculated the time it would take to dump the bodies and still get to work on time. Frank said he felt a chill run through him, because that wasn't panic. That wasn't a breakdown. That was planning. That was preparation. That was evil. For the first time, Frank allowed himself to see Chris not as the awkward, quiet man who once sat at his dinner table, but as the monster who had looked Shanann in the eyes and made a choice he could never undo, a choice Frank could never forgive. And from that moment forward, Frank vowed that he would spend the rest of his life making sure the world never forgot who Chris really was. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Dark Matters True Crime to support more powerful storytelling.
What I'd like to say to the courts that Shanann, Bella, and Nico are loving, caring people. They love life. They love being around people who love them. They always had good times. This is the first time they went to the beach this year, and they loved it. But God only knows what happened that night. Life will never be the same without Shanann, Bella, and Celeste and Nico. Had all their lives to live. They were taken by a heartless one. This is the heartless one, the evil monster, who dare you take the lives of my daughter Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico. I trusted you to take care of them, not kill them. And they also trusted you. The heartless monster, and then you take them out like trash. You disgust me. They were loving and caring people. You may have taken their bodies from me, but you will never take the love they had for me. They loved us more than you will ever know, because you don't know what love is. Because if you did, you would not have killed them. You monster, thought you would get away with this. I don't know how. The cameras do not lie. You carry them out like trash of the house. Yes, I seen the videotape. You buried my daughter Shanann and Nico in a shallow grave, and then you put Bella and Celeste in huge containers of crude oil. You heartless monster. You have to live with this vision every day of your life, and I hope you see that every time you close your eyes at night. Oh, I forgot. You have no heart or feelings or love. Let me tell you something. I will think of them every day of my life, and I love them every day of my life. Prison is too good for you. This is hard to say, but may God have mercy on your soul. I hope you enjoy your new life. It's nothing like the one you had out here. May the courts have no mercy on you. It's hard every day. It hurts in so many ways. I have heard people say that you're not a monster. No, you are not. You're an evil monster. Thank you. Love you, Shanann, Bella, and Nico. Love you, Pop Up and Dad. And one other thing. And Shanann says she is super excited for justice today. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir.